Everything's
everybody,
recorded.
welcome back to another great episode of We Speak Dispatch. Because if we're speaking dispatch, we're speaking it right to you. We're speaking your language. You should be saying, well, that makes sense. That's good stuff. So today we've got our special guest with us. We got Leslie over there. How goes it, Leslie?
It's awesome. Thanks for asking.
And Joe down there. How goes it, Joe?
It goes well. It kind of cooled off a little bit. It was hot yesterday. Wow.
We're coming into summer now. So we had the first day of summer last week. So it's going to be heating up everywhere we go. So, and Jill, how goes it over there?
It's good. I'm at the outdoor headquarters. We're doing good.
At the outdoor headquarters. I don't see any birds or anything behind you. No squirrels. You're okay. So
Yeah, nothing so far.
all right. So, hey, we thought what would be a really kind of a fun topic, and we'll keep it kind of fun, is the fact that all of us have been in public safety. All of us have answered numerous 911 calls, and all of us have said, oh my God, that was the worst reporting party ever, or the worst caller ever. But what if we reversed it? How many of us have had to call 911, and are we the best callers? I guarantee we're not. So let's hear our experiences doing this thing. So go ahead. Who wants to go first? Joe, why don't you go first? You got a great story. Go ahead.
Yeah, go, Joe. I want to hear this story again.
Oh, man. I was at a family get together. Our family's pretty large, and I decided to stay a little bit longer for the Super Bowl than I should have. Most people know Super Bowl is played in the winter. So Iowa gets dark early around that time. And I was heading home, and my cell phone was pretty much dead because I didn't take my charger with me. So make sure you take your chargers when you travel. And a deer come up out of nowhere. Out of the ditch, and I smacked that thing, and my headlights made it look like it was hitting a home run. I mean, that deer went flying. So my headlights both blew out. The front end kind of caved in a little bit, but the car was still running. So I had a cell phone on about 5%, and I had to call 911. And I first went to a location because I was in rural Iowa on county road. So I got to an intersection to be able to say where I was. So I at least accomplished that. And this was years ago, so before new products that give accurate locations. And since I only had 5%, I knew my phone may die any time. The dispatcher answers the phone, and I just said, I've just hit a deer, but I know all the information you need to know, so just listen. Talk about a complete jerk. But I got all done, and the dispatcher did thank me and said that a deputy would be en route. And I think they actually were kind of laughing because I went location, my phone number, what just happened. You know, I wasn't injured. I was not blocking traffic. Here's my license plate. And don't call me back to look for me because I can't turn on my headlights because my phone's going to die.
My God, so demanding.
I know. But I got the information across.
Let me ask you, did you know what agency you called since you live in that area? Did you know?
I did not, because I was on my way home and I was in counties that I wasn't familiar with, and I was on the border of two different counties.
And how did you tell them where you were? Because you said it's in a rural area.
Street signs.
Oh, you did? Okay.
So I drove to an intersection and it just said where I was.
Okay, cool. Wow, that's a good one. Boy, that poor deer. Did the deer get it? Is it dead?
The deer was dead. I didn't find it. I mean, it went flying and tumbled into the ditch. And I mean, it was a good square hit. It looked like I hit a home run.
I think the key question would have been, how fast were you going to make that deer fly? So it's you're like, it was a reindeer.
55, so maybe 56.
56.
Oh, yeah.
That was exactly it. All right, who else wants to go?
I'll go. Oh,
Okay.
Sorry, because mine just happened yesterday.
That's
So,
Go ahead. Give us your yesterday's incident.
yes, yesterday's incident. So I had gone to lunch with a couple of my dispatch friends. We met in a town about 30 miles from here. And I'm driving home. And so we had lunch. Lovely. Water. That's all I had was water.
Water. And he's doing 55. Yeah, okay.
But as we all left, because this was kind of the central place for us to meet. So we all had quite a drive, and we had some issue getting there because traffic, it was on the weekend and it was whatever. So we all kind of thought to ourselves, should I go to the restroom before I leave? Nah, I'm just going to go right home.
Oh my God.
Never, ever. It's an opportunity.
Do that. Yeah.
But so I'm driving home. There's a lot of construction on the freeway and everything's moving pretty quickly. And then traffic stops. I stop. The person behind me did not stop. Wham! Hit me in the back of my car.
Driver 1 en route.
Trooper responding.
Not hard enough to deploy the airbags, but hard enough that there's some damage to my vehicle. So I pull over, I'm not happy about it, but I'm pulling over ready to go. And I turn to look, and there she goes. She's driving. Oh, I don't think so.
Maybe
So
you're looking for a safe location to pull over. You don't know.
I'm sure. As she's driving away, I'm looking at the license plate and repeating it to myself. La 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 la. Okay. And then I get on the phone. And same thing. I know the questions you're going to ask me.
Oh God.
So, but and I was kind of surprised because I didn't initially get the highway patrol. I bounced to the agency in that area, and then they had to transfer me. And I'm still running through the license plate in my head. So I'm like, okay, let me just get the plate out. So you can write this down. So if I forget it. But they were super nice. And I did out myself. I said, hey, I'm a dispatcher at a neighboring agency.
And
You
I
know,
expect
that-
extra help. You know,
Send them now.
I did not say that.
I
But
want a
it-
helicopter. I want people.
But it was a reminder, and I think that's why we're doing this broadcast or this podcast, is that we sometimes get people on the phone and you're like, oh, geez, really?
Yeah.
But when it's you have a completely different perspective. So Jill, I'm sorry, I cut you
Go
off.
ahead, Joe. What's
How's
up?
that? So go.
So mine were never involving me. I worked, it was actually all 3 times I called, it was for the jobs I worked at. And 2 were non-emergency and 1 was 911. And every time I call, I have to remind myself to slow down, because after 10 years of answering calls, you know what the information is and you don't like waiting for the information.
Okay, Eunice, travel plans. I need to be in New York on Monday, LA on Tuesday, New York on Wednesday, LA on Thursday, New York on Friday. Got it? Got it.
So I would just wait for them to ask the question. And like, sometimes it was very slow coming and I'm like, okay, slow down. And then like there was an accident that I was trying to explain to them that here's an accident, here's where it is. And I'm trying to give them really good detail. And I don't know if they actually got the really good detail, but I got it. So yeah, it's hard to call knowing what you're going to be asked.
Yeah.
And not wanting to be that person who spits out all the information or just comes at them like, I know what I'm doing better than you do. So it's it's a rough line, but you also know the information you want and you don't want them to have to wait, because I never wanted to wait for the information, but it's like,
Right,
ooh,
right.
what do you do? What do you do?
And I know
So-
I've told all of my crew that if you call 911, say who you work for, because they're going to know I don't have to baby you along. You're going to know what questions are they're coming. So you're going to have that information. So I've always told people, if you call, say who you are, or where you work or whatever, just
Right.
so they know, oh, okay, I don't have to go like, this is what that means. It's like, we know what it is. So,
Right.
you know, I
But,
call
but
them-
don't,
What?
And use plain English. Don't use
Yes.
codes. Don't use abbreviations, because that confuses everybody. When you start using their language,
yeah.
yeah.
How many of us, Doug, in here have had to make a tape though of an officer or another dispatcher calling 911? And what were your thoughts when you heard that?
Yeah, I've had a couple of nasty ones where the officer just immediately says, just listen to me right now. And it's like, really? That's not the best way to approach. At least say, I'm Officer Johnson and I work for here. And here's,
Hey, I'm out there in the streets every day. I got to be able to move like a cheetah.
instead of just screaming, listen to me, because people get immediately, their hackles get up. And then it's like, oh, really? It don't work like that, friend. And it's like, you know,
yeah, that's
I think we've all had that kind of experience.
Oh, and something like that, when somebody says one of those trigger words, you know, just
Yeah.
listen to me, or, you know, I'm off duty with such and such agency, and you're like,
Really?
Yeah.
and,
Well, then
you know,
don't
but-
say it.
but instead of having that knee-jerk reaction of who cares,
Yeah.
it is reminding yourself, okay, like, you know, Joe's talking about, I don't have to ask any questions because they're going to give me the
Right.
information in the order that I need it, and I can kind of just sit back and, you know, wait for
And that's,
some of the.
and I think what Jill said's right, because I've had tapes where I've had other agencies call my agency and they're using terms that we don't use. One of them I remember was saying, yeah, I'm code 6 at a location. And I'm like, our dispatcher's like, code 6, what is that? We don't use that code. And it was like, to them, it's normal talk, but to us, it was not. And that's the thing. We have lots of codes and a lot of agencies around us don't use any codes. So it was kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I will tell you, I didn't call 911 on this particular thing, but I called a 911-ish. The area I lived in, because I lived by the ocean, we had a wildlife 911 that we could call. And it was for if you got a wild animal on your property, you call these people. They're specialists in mountain lions and all that other stuff. So the area I was living in, I lived right in the harbor. And one day I hear this terrible noise, this and I'm like, what the hell is that? And I walk out my living room and I see my 2 cats have now they're looking through the blinds out of our patio right there. And I'm like, that's weird. So I open the patio blinds and oh my God, there's a huge seal sitting right on the other end of the glass. And he's looking at my cats. And I'm thinking, he's not looking at them to go like, hey, how you doing? He's looking at them, I'm going to eat him. So I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like in a panic going, what do I do? Oh my God. So I picked up my phone and I had already pre-programmed for Wildlife 901. I called them. They're like, can I help you? I'm like, okay, look there's a huge seal right outside my door and I don't know what to do with this thing. And they're like, where do you live? And I'm like, I live in this harbor. And they're like, okay, sir, you live in a harbor. That's where they live. And I'm like,
under the sea, under the sea. Darling, it's better down where it's wetter. Take it from me.
I know, but he's right here at the door. And they're like, okay, just leave him alone. It'll be all right. And the whole time I'm all in a panic. I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I'm one of those.
I'm that person.
Yeah,
I'm that person.
I'm like, oh my. And I went to work and told people, I said, okay, look, I really jacked this thing up today because if you walk outside the door, you can see other seals on the rocks. And it's like, this one just happened to come up because he saw the cats and was like, dinner. So, you know, I mean, it's a weird thing to get that kind of experience of having to lose your mind when you see something like that. I mean, I wasn't used to seeing a seal at my back door. So, I mean, I don't know who it would be. So,
yeah. But that emotional, you don't realize that you're being taken on this emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
And it's so easy for us in the communications center to sit there because, you know, our setting hasn't changed. Everything is very consistent.
Yeah.
But the people who are calling us have just been through, maybe we don't think it's traumatic, but it's traumatic for them.
For them, sure,
and,
yeah.
Yeah, and it is taking that step to go, okay, let me remember what it was like when I was the caller. And sometimes
I think that's kind of a nice way to kind of look at it. Like, take that and think the next time you get a caller who's hysterical over something you don't think is hysterical. And especially we're moving into July 4th coming up and there's going to be lots of fireworks going and, you know, people are going to be in a panic calling in, somebody's shooting. And it's like, we just have to be patient enough to say, hey, was I patient when I called? I mean, you know, we all can't be totally patient. I mean, we all talk fast and if I see another seal, it'll be too soon. So
or if I hit another deer.
I didn't realize how big seals are, but this thing was huge sitting at the back door. So I'm just glad I didn't open the screen door and let him out. It's like, you know, he's in our living room now walking around weird. So
there is one thing I've always thought about. Having dealt with 911 calls for so long, I've only ever called for basically non-emergencies that really never affected me. It was for other things. Like if there was truly an emergency, I don't know how I'd be on the other end of the line. Would I be that calm person who knows what to say? Or would I be that screaming person who's like, I can't do anything. So you never know what you're going to do until you're in that situation.
And I just hope no dispatchers use the calm down technique because it just doesn't work. Just screaming, calm down. It's like, it just doesn't work. So, all right, well, that's another episode of something that we all kind of experience. And I'll bet you out there listening or watching this have said to yourself, yeah, okay, I called one time too, and here's what happened. So if you did, leave us a comment, send us a message, and maybe we'll bring you on and you can tell us about your experience calling 911 yourself and what kind of experience you had, good, bad, or indifferent, whatever you may have had out there. So it's important. We're heard in over 20 countries now, which is always awesome. We're on every podcast platform you could think of. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We're all over the place. Take a listen. Give us 15 minutes. Well, I guarantee we'll get you talking and you'll be saying, oh, how about this? How about that thing? So I appreciate everybody playing along with us today. And please leave us a comment. Tell us what you got going on. What do you think of the podcast we're doing out there? So other than that, thanks very much, everybody. Adios.
Hi, this is Courtney, and you've been listening to another great episode of We Speak Dispatch, proudly sponsored by our friends at Zybex.
This series is dedicated to the men and women who risk everything to save the life of a stranger. I'm William Shatner. Join us again next week for more true stories on Rescue 911.